It's all about peace, spreading love in the world. So I gotta represent rebels for joy, positivity. You know that we're all about it. Magic happens when you align your purpose, passion, and power. Just believe in your greatness. I know for sure the light that you radiate too strong to ignore. Emotional revolution. It's time that we start. Love, we need more. We are rebels for joy. Woo!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rebels for Joy podcast. I am Jillian Bolands with my co-host and co-rebel leader,
Bonnie Kelly.
Hello, gorgeous. How are you?
I feel like magical is like the word of the year this year, like magical.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you 100%. And it's so fun because like we're actually so excited to see each other. And when we record these episodes, sometimes we've done other work together beforehand, but with what we're doing now with creating the podcast and launching everything, we are setting specific time to get on the calendar just to record podcasts. So friends, like when you're hearing us get excited about seeing each other, like it's real. We really are that excited to see each other because we know that we create magic and we are just going to spread so much goodness within this episode to our listeners. Am I right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know actually there's so many of our colleagues and our friends and even our students that say like when the two of us get together, they're just like, there's magic that just erupts. Yeah. It's like sparks begin to fly. And it's just a beautiful way that people are recognizing our level of excitement because that there is just so much energy that comes together. And we're just so honored to have you, our rebel sister, here along for the ride.
Yes, we are. And it's so true. And we're going to dive more into that because BK, I've actually been thinking about, we constantly are going back and forth on different topics for podcasts and things like that. But I have a couple really juicy ones that I'm excited to present to you so that we can sink into together. Because like we've said many times, we're redefining friendship. We're redefining sisterhood. We're certainly redefining business partner lifestyle, all that stuff. So little teaser for you listeners and little teaser for you, Bonnie, as you're like, oh, but I do have a joke that I want to kick off our episode with today. Are you ready?
You know I love jokes.
Okay, Bonnie, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Woo.
Woohoo.
Glad you're excited to be here too.
Woohoo!
Oh my gosh.
So cheesy. That one was corny.
We really are this nerdy, and we are so honored to be with you, our soul sisters, because we know that you are too. So yay for all the woohooing. And we've got a really cool conversation, Bonnie, that I want to like kick it over to you to knock out of the park as we begin this episode today.
Yeah, you guys, we're sinking our teeth into insecurities. I mean, this is not a topic that should be a stranger to you by any means.
No.
Insecurities are these ugly thought patterns and belief patterns that every single one of you that are listening, including ourselves, deal with.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're fueled by fear. They drive our behaviors of procrastination, avoidance, reactiveness. And they're constantly invading our thought patterns, robbing us of joy.
Yeah.
So today we thought, well, let's talk about how you can begin to eliminate them for good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like just the thought of that, eliminating insecurities for good. Like that is an exciting thing to even dream about, right? Because I know I've got my insecurities. I've got some that I've learned how to release, some that are present in today's lifetime. It's like, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? And it's so doable. It's so doable.
Yeah. So when we talk about for good, I want you guys to recognize that this is going to be an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. But the for good means that we're going to be stripping the layers so that when they do show up again, right? So they'll show up for Jillian and I. Mm-hmm. But they're not paralyzing anymore.
Correct.
Because we've released a lot of the control that our insecurities had over us. We released the stories. We released the attachment to. We released the comfortability around our insecurities.
So just pause right there, Bonnie, because that's a really good point. We are comfortable with our insecurities. Yeah. As much as we hate them, as much as they are to our detriment, as much as we quote unquote wish they would just go away, there is a certain comfort level with being able to say, well, I'm insecure about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then we want to deny it because we think that if I accept it, all of a sudden, then that's going to make it more true. Well,
It's okay. It's my norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than recognizing by accepting it, that's the gateway to letting go of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gateway. And we can't walk through the door
Right.
until you've really come to terms with what door you need to walk through.
Oh, so good. So good. Yes, exactly. We talked about acceptance is not acceptable on a previous podcast episode, and it's the same thing. Like, we get so afraid that when we accept something that we've made it okay.
Yeah.
And so same thing with insecurities. Like, if we look at our insecurities and we say like, oh yeah, like there it is, like there's that thing that we're going to have to like be branded with it forever. And no, that's the point, is naming it so that we can release it, so that we know what to release, right?
Yeah. We know what to work on.
Yeah.
We know what to work on. So if there's an insecurity that you, the listener, are dealing with, then the first thing we got to do is we got to own it. You need to really say like, yeah, okay, I'm struggling with feeling worthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one, right? There's 10 common ones that that most people deal with. And I'm just going to share like the top 5. Okay. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I'm stupid, and I don't matter. You've got other ones like I don't deserve, that I'm not, I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head right now, but
it was really good to pull out
those
those
are like,
6 though. That was really impressive.
they are in my book. So
well, yeah.
I feel like I have to know them.
Well.
I feel like it's expected of me to know these.
I am so impressed.
These are common though. And these are the ones that we hide from at the detriment of our joy. Mm-hmm. Right? We will hide from them. We will deny them. We will absolutely, especially people like Jillian and I, like you listening, who have done some of the foundational work, right? That you aren't a newbie to personal dev, most likely.
Right.
So we want to say, well, I've worked through that already. I've dealt with that already. And then we're just not willing to really recognize it. Like, okay, and it still affects you.
Right. Right. Yeah, there are so many times that I'm like, oh, haven't I done the work on this? And I'm like, well, yes. And I celebrate the work that I have done. And this new situation or this new time period of my life is giving me another layer to come back to, because it's not completely healed yet. And it's okay that it's not completely healed yet. We are here for a human lifetime, not a human moment in time where like we get to magically erase all the bad feelings. It's a constant work in process. We get to be that constant work in progress. And so if things come back up for you, it's just like, okay, let's celebrate the work that you have done on that, because now you're ready for that deeper layer.
So much so, you guys. And it's just like, that's why we preferenced in the beginning that it's layers. Mm-hmm. So the more that you strip those layers, the more that you begin to shed them, you can get closer and closer to eliminating them for good. Right. And they might show up, but they're going to show up just as a thought. So it's not going to have an impact, or it's not going to drive a behavior. So it really did get healed for good. And that's ultimately the goal of what we're inspiring and encouraging you, the listener, to do. Yeah. Because the work works. You just got to do the work.
Interesting how that works, isn't it?
Is that not a mantra that we often say in our
year long program? We've said that a time or two, yes. So you said, Bonnie, that the first step really is owning it. So it's identifying it. It's like looking at the thing and saying, okay, this is what we're dealing with today. And can I just put like a little energetic plug in there?
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're doing this stuff, right? When we're looking at like, okay, this is my insecurity, we immediately want to like shame ourselves or make it feel really heavy or make it feel like, oh, I have to work through this. But what if we looked at it with a level of excitement? Like, oh, that's the insecurity that's been bogging me down for the past 30, 40, 50, whatever years. Okay, I know it now. It's all about how you approach it, right? So if you are going to approach eliminating insecurities with this feeling of like, throwing the sack on your back and needing to trudge up the mountain, it's going to feel really freaking hard. Yeah. However, if you choose to say, okay, I am here, I am ready, I have lived my life, and I am now ready for this next level of healing and self-discovery, I get to eliminate this insecurity, it's going to feel a lot more different to go through this process.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm looking at our notes right here, and one of the other episodes that we're going to dive into just piggybacks on this. And there's a quote in here by the remarkable Bonnie Kelly, and it just giggles that there's a quote in here by me. But I think it's so fitting to what exactly you're saying here. It says, "Life is a beautiful ebb and flow of good times and shitty times. Learn to enjoy the ride."
Yes. I mean, can I get an amen? The incredible Bonnie Kelly has spoken, my friends. But like, how true is that? And isn't it nice when we can just say that so flippantly and be like, all right, so there are some really great times and there are some times that really suck. And guess what? We get to enjoy the learning and the healing and the silliness and the hardship that we get to overcome every step of the way.
Yeah. Jillian, you just went through a really hard time.
Yeah.
You just lost your grandfather, and, supporting your family emotionally, energetically, just holding space for everybody. And I was beyond just not, I don't know if I want to say impressed, because that's not the word that I'm going for, but it was like almost like feeling really humbled by witnessing how well you chose to just allow that process to unfold, to give yourself space when needed, to rise up, to inject joy and laughter into those moments, to really find these places of just deep appreciation and, to inspire others through that process as well. And, I think it's just a testament to exactly what you're saying here.
Thank you. I received that and I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think I look at myself in the way that I've experienced this past very short period of time where a lot has gone on in my family and just in life. And I know how differently I went through the process now than I would have years ago before having done this level of work. And there's so much to be said about simply witnessing. Yeah. Right. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I feel insecure about X, Y, and Z, but every time I think about that insecurity, I feel really bad. Believe me, been there, done that. And it's easy to force through and pretend it's not there. But when we're able to just witness the feeling and be with the feeling and then support ourselves through it. I made a post on Instagram saying, if I expect this physical body to show up for me in the important times in life, then I need to show up for her when she's asking me to rest, to recalibrate. And that's what's needed after going through a traumatic time period, whether it be the loss of somebody, whether it be just really going through the own muck in your own head. There's no level of hardship that our body is not going to then ask for us to just center back in and recalibrate afterwards. So this identifying the insecurity, it's so beautiful, because if you're able to identify it and then just witness it and just feel how you feel about it and have it be okay, magic happens and so much freedom comes from that. So thank you, Bonnie. And I hope that for you listening, this is available for you. And there is not a single person out there that is perfect at this, but it does get easier with practice.
Oh, so much easier. And let's talk about diving into identifying even a little deeper, you guys, because part of that process isn't just to acknowledge that it's like, okay, I'll admit, here I am raising my hand, saying, yep, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't feel like I matter, or I don't feel that I'm capable. Right. And that's a big one for me. If you guys have been watching my Insta story, like I've been talking about, my word of the year is capable. Right. Because as I'm leveling up, this old program is showing up in very sneaky and new ways. And I'm just like, oh, well, whoa, where did I put so many limitations on my, awesomeness? Yeah. And I'm choosing to move through this. So not only do we need to identify it, we need to identify the purpose that it serves in your life.
Yes.
This is a tough one, because often we're just only looking at how it's hindering us. We're looking at, how the negative impact of it, without really recognizing there's a payoff. Yeah. There's a benefit. I mean, we don't do anything without purpose. So there is a purpose to you feeling like crap. There's a purpose to you beating yourself up. Now, maybe that purpose is actually still grounded in a negative, meaning that it's this perception that you need to protect yourself, that, if you fail, that means that you're a failure, that it's trying to keep you small, it's trying to make other people comfortable around you. Whatever that purpose is, it's probably anchored in something just kind of mucky and ucky anyways. However, recognizing that allows us to start to identify how it's molding and shifting our behaviors, our conversations, our actions, our movements, our thought processes, our, everything, really.
Yeah.
So when we ask you to identify, not only identify and take ownership of it, but really ground in to what is this purpose and how is it showing up in every aspect of my life, in my thought patterns, my behavioral patterns, because that level of information is exactly what we need so that we can finally free ourselves from this BS.
Yes. 1,000,000%. And we so quickly want to jump, because actually the next step in this process, so identify and then remove it, right? We so quickly want to jump to that remove it because we don't like feeling yucky. So we just want it gone, right? Like we want the shadow gone. We just want it out of us. We want that old experience. We want that memory just gone. And yeah, okay, great. As a human, we understand that, but it's really hard to remove something unless we know why it's there, because we're gonna replace it with something else, even if we try to remove that. So when we understand why that insecurity is there, what void it's been filling for us, then we get to really look at what we're actually yearning for, and hopefully then fill that hole with something that's actually going to serve us rather than the insecurity. Did I describe that well enough?
Wonderful. I think you did great. I like to think of, I talk in metaphors sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So if we identify, let's say, for example, you have a pool in your backyard that's been left unattended and it's got all kinds of, ick in it, right? You're not going to jump in and want to go swimming. And you're like, immediately you're going to want to drain the pool. Right. So this is where we identify there's a problem. There's ick in the pool. We drain the pool, which is the removing of the ick, right? But then immediately we also want to then jump into just replacing it. Well, if you haven't spent the time to scrub the walls, there's a good chance you're going to be filling it and it's just going to be ick again because you haven't taken the work to really clean it out.
Yeah, really good metaphor, Bonnie. Like
right?
Really, really good.
So I want you guys to know that this is kind of part of that process, is that we have to identify it, but then you have to get to understanding, okay, what's causing it? Well, that's part of the identification. So what's causing your pool to be icky and full of junk, right? Maybe it's an imbalancement in the, the pH balance in there. Maybe there's some kind of outside influence that is creating toxins, like whatever it is, we have to identify it. So we know when it's time to remove the water and we cleanse it out, we know how to replace in a way that is going to prevent it from happening again.
Yes. Yes. Any tips or tools you have to help people with that? What would you recommend with that, with like really getting clear on what's going on?
I love that you just asked me this. I'm like, is she really asking? It's like just asking me this question? Like, yeah, like I totally love this. So part of the removing is, I always, again, analogy queen over here. So removing it means that you have to become a really, really good defense attorney. Mm-hmm. I want you to think of this negative belief, this insecurity. We're going to use the example, I'm not enough. This belief, you have been the best prosecuting attorney on the planet. You have gathered evidence. You have compiled experiences and memories. You have justified and rationalized. I mean, you are good with your case against the world to prove that that you're not good enough.
Right.
So when we're removing, we really need to accept the responsibility that now you want to become a good defense attorney who's coming into a case that's stacked against them. Mm-hmm. Now, Jillian, what is the job of a good defense attorney?
You need to just be showing evidence. You need to be constantly proving, right? And like pulling from as many sources as possible to show that you're not good enough.
So that's a good defense. But the best defense attorney's job isn't to disprove the evidence stacked against them. Yeah. It's just to create enough reasonable doubt so that the jury can no longer convict.
Oh, they're sneaky.
It's true.
It's right? So true. It's completely true. Yes. So we have essentially been compiling all this evidence against ourselves our whole life that will just make us not want to argue anymore that we are good enough because there's just enough to say, nope, you're not.
So exactly. So what we want to do is we want to look at that evidence and we want to poke holes in it. We just need to poke holes in the case so that the evidence isn't so like powerful.
Yeah.
Which means that to remove, this is the cleansing of the pool, right? We got to get in there on our hands and knees, start scrubbing the walls, right? Scrubbing the tiles. Is that we want to look at all the evidence, make a list of all the evidence that of all the reasons why and all the memories, all the excuses that you believe, like you believe this negative belief, right? This insecurity about yourself, that you're fat, you're stupid, you're ugly, blah, whatever it is, right? So we write out all the reasons for that. And then as a good defense attorney, we're going to just ask the question, in what way is this not true?
Mm.
Or in what way could this not be true?
Right.
So we could just start to poke holes to create some reasonable doubt. So then once we've got that reasonable doubt where the mind's like, well, I still think I'm not good enough, but it's possible that I might be good enough. And we're kind of on that teeter-totter. Now we can move into the final step, which is replace.
Anyone else want to do this? Like, I'm like, let's teeter-totter it up. Let's replace. Okay. So we've identified, we know what the insecurity is. We have really done the work to say, okay, I know all the reasons why I've utilized this against myself. And I'm now ready to fight for what I know to like, what the truth of me knows. And the truth of me knows, if we're going to stick with the same thing, it's that I am good enough. So I'm starting to remove by poking the holes. And now I get to replace. And universally, I always say, I actually use the analogy of a closet, right? So the universe is like a vacuum. Whenever there is space, the universe will fill it with something else. So in order to have something else new come in, then we need to first create the space. So if you look at your closet and it's finally time to purge all the old sweaters and all the old whatever from 10 years ago, excellent. But we have to be really specific and very clear on what we want to now fill that newly created space with. I actually had an example of this. I purged my closet, and then one of my sisters so kindly texted me the next day saying, hey, I went through my closet and I have a bunch of clothes that I think you might like. Do you want them? And it was like my innate, I almost said, oh yeah, totally. But then I was like, you know what? I think I'm all set. I want to be super purposeful with the articles of clothing I put into my closet. And while I'm really, really appreciative, I got rid of my old hand-me-downs and I want to get some new stuff. But it was interesting because I was tested like, hey, do you just want my hand-me-downs? And normally I'm like, yeah, sign a girl up. But like, I wanted to be intentional. So I love this analogy because now we've poked holes in things. We've removed the articles of clothing. We've removed the scummy water from the pool. Now we want to replace, but we want to make sure that we're replacing it with what we actually want.
And then with that replacing, so we're spending the time and the energy to really map out, okay, now what do I want to believe instead?
Yeah.
Just like Jillian said, being very intentional, very purposeful. And then to reinforce it, to strengthen it, we want to look for evidence of why that is true.
Right.
So you want to look back in the history, like look back in the memory files and kind of dust off some of those memories that really got dismissed or displaced as irrelevant or not important, and find pieces that really validate that says, yeah, look, there you are good enough. Yeah. When somebody holds the door for you, just because it's evidence, boom, you're good enough. Yeah. When your spouse does something to, that is just thoughtful, boom, you're good enough. When the dishes are done by your children and you didn't ask, boom, you're good enough, right? So you consciously just start to choose to perceive experiences, new and old, as if those validate as validating evidence to the new belief or whatever it is you chose to believe. So that is the
term
process.
evidence with that. It's just so good because it's true. That's all there too. All the yucky stuff was there, but all the really good supportive evidence was there too. But when we are so conditioned to talking poorly to ourselves, having those insecurities really lead the way, we forget, and dust does pile up on those really good, heartfelt, meaningful evidence pieces from our past that say like, no, actually, we are really great.
The negative experiences in the mind will always outweigh the positive ones. And so the positive ones will get just chucked into the back as irrelevant. Yeah. And it's really now our job as a good defense attorney for our own belief systems to dig back in those files and to say, wait a minute, where have I experienced and witnessed consideration and love and support that validates this belief or could validate this belief, that I could put it in this file to reinforce it, to strengthen it as I'm adapting it as my new belief system.
Right.
Yeah. So sisters, this is that process. Okay. It's an ongoing, it's a peeling the layers. And hopefully, you've got some more intel on what that looks like. If this is something you're struggling with and it's something that you want some coaching or guidance on, sister, we've got you, right? We've got online courses. We've got group programs. We have one-on-one coaching. Like Jillian and I are here as your rebellion leaders to lead you beyond your limitations. We want you to dream bigger. We want you to live more fulfilling. We want your life to be great, epic, legendary, in whatever facet that looks and feels for you. And so we are here to support that. So if there's a way we can do it, all you have to do is let us know and we'll help you along the way.
Doesn't that feel good? Oh, thank you so much for being here, my loves. Just a quick recap: identify, remove, replace. And I'm going to add one final element: celebrate.
Yeah.
Celebrate each step along the way, right? We get these quick tips or these tutorials or these to-do lists, these great tips from all sorts of different information sources around the world, ours included. But what we don't do oftentimes to ingrain it is to celebrate it. So we are here celebrating you for simply being here and taking in this knowledge. Please tag us on social media, tag @Rebels4Joy, and let us know what you did today to eliminate some of your insecurities for good. We cannot wait to hear it.
Yay! Well, thanks, sisters. Thanks so much for joining. And stay tuned for another episode, which will be coming at you each and every week.